Well, welcome to the Mill Valley Film Festival, Judi Dench. It's so great to have you here, even though it's virtual. I mean, we would much prefer to have you here.
Me too.
In person, yeah, right. But we do what we can do. And it's so great to be able to honor you and your career. And as you probably know, we're going to be opening this year's Mill Valley Film Festival with Blithe Spirit, your new film. And I have to say, in a year when we've had to completely reinvent who we are and what we're doing, most of the festival is going to be online and virtual. However, we are going to be showing Blithe Spirit at a drive-in that we've constructed, yes, especially for the festival. So I rather love that we will have you on screen in a meadow in San Rafael for our opening night film.
Oh, I think Madame Arcati would quite like that.
I have a feeling she might, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it would be quite up her alley, so to speak.
Yes.
So we also are thrilled that we're able to take this opportunity to talk with you, but also to honor your career. So again, if we were doing this in real time and real space, we would have brought somebody in to say a few words about you and to present an award to you. So we've actually invited somebody who was a tributee at Mill Valley a few years ago to say a few words to you. So I'm going to ask Yvonne if she would bring that person up on screen to dedicate this tribute to you. So Yvonne, when you're ready, please take it away.
I'm sorry this is all happening online because I would like to come back to Mill Valley, where you gave me such a wonderful welcome. And what a pity that Judi Dench can't actually be with you, because she would love to have see what goes on there. Oh dear. What can I say about Judi? Well, first, congratulations. Lovely to have an award, Judi. Ever had an award before? What do you do with your awards? Oh, sit and look at them and smile, I hope. All well deserved. I first saw Judi when I was at university. Oh my goodness, 60 years ago. I'd gone to see Romeo and Juliet at the Old Vic Theatre in London, which was the centre of London's Shakespeare, directed by Franco Zeffirelli, the great film and opera director. That's why I went. And that's how I came to fall in love with Judi. I just wanted to be her Romeo, but that lucky man was John Stride, and I had to wait for another 7 years to share a stage with her in a production of a modern Russian play called The Promise in Oxford. Did rather well, very well. We ran for nearly a year, didn't we, Judi, in London? Had a rare old time. The only trouble with acting with Judi is you have to keep a straight face when she's laughing in it. What are you to do? I know Judi said that the most valuable quality a human being can have is a sense of humour. Well, has she got one? Absolutely. Well, when we took The Promise, this Russian play, to America without Judi, I'm afraid it only lasted 3 weeks, less. But then we were together again doing more Shakespeare, or rather Shakespeare for the first time, at Stratford-upon-Avon, and there we did Macbeth. And Judi Dench is the greatest Lady Macbeth there will ever be, I think. Although she doesn't much like, I think, playing nasty people. But then she discovered what was not nasty about Lady Macbeth. Revelatory. And other plays too. And typical of Judi, she wasn't always playing the leading part. That's not her style. Her style is to be what? A theatre actor? Of course. Preeminent. Of her generation and of her century, I would say. But then too, perhaps because of her sense of humour, she's loved doing sitcoms, two of them, very successful on British television. One with her late dear husband, Michael. And of course of late she's been on the big screen. So she's conquered it all. And for those of you who've never seen her on stage, well, I hope it's not too late and that Judi will be back where she belongs, on the stage. She's called a national treasure here. She doesn't like that. But I think Mill Valley have turned her into an international treasure. And for that, many congratulations, Judi. And if I had the award, I would give it to you, but I gather it's going to come by mail. Lots of love. Bye-bye.
Oh, how lovely.
And this is the award that he was referencing, which will indeed be coming to you through the miracle, hopefully, of the United States Postal Service, if we still have it. But this will be on its way for you. It's actually, it's a bronze statuette, which was made by an artist in Mill Valley, Alice Corning, and each one is individually cast and numbered, and we will be getting that off to you, I'm happy to say.
How lovely.
Yes.
How lovely, thank you.
So, I love that Ian talked about his first memory of you and of theatre and of film and of television, all these things that have really distinguished your career, which I mean, I have a guess you may have thought that you were going to be in theatre all your life, and then along comes film and along comes television. But I remember also my first time seeing you, which was in Trevor Nunn's production of The Winter's Tale in Stratford-on-Avon. And that was a radical experience for me and a revelation, because you played two parts. You played both Hermione, the wronged mother, and Perdita, her daughter.
Yes.
That seemed very radical to me. You were double cast. I don't think anybody had ever done that before. Can you talk a little bit about that role?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
I can, because Trevor, who I knew and had worked for, suddenly came to me and said, I would like you to play Hermione in The Winter's Tale. I said, oh, Trevor, not mother's parts already. That's it. I'd rather rushed ahead in the age line. Anyway, he said, yes, yes. And then about 3 weeks later, he said, so I don't think it was a thought, you know, I don't think it was what he'd intended originally. And about 3 weeks later, he said, or 2 weeks, he said, actually, it might be very interesting to double the two parts. Mm. And that is what we did. So I had a wonderful bit of being, oh, poor old wronged Hermione, and then a glorious bit in Bohemia, where we were all dancing and we were all kind of flower children. And it was very, very exciting and lovely to do. Lovely to do.
Yeah. Yes, I remember it being a sort of hippie bucolic, and it was wonderful.
Yes, it was. And my friend Stanley Wells, Professor Wells, in Stratford, and was sitting there, and I could, in those days, I could see people in the audience. I wish it was the same now. And I could see him smiling a lot for the first bit of the play, and then scowling a lot for the second bit of the play in Bohemia. I don't think he approved of it at all.
Yeah, I think it was a revelation for me, and I think it was, you know, really one of the things that really made me committed to Shakespeare for the rest of my life. You know, I mean, I think anything that brings it together with such vibrance is just incredible. And I you know, I've often thought to that time, it was around that time as well that Peter Brook was doing extraordinary work, Peter Hall. And then, you know, in that sort of late 60s, early 70s time, there were some extraordinary productions that came from France, Ariane Nouchkine at the Roundhouse, you know. And
yes.
I often wondered whether it was just that I was young and impressionable, or was that a particularly special time in theatre?
I don't know, but like you, Zoe, I remember it as being a very exceptional, exciting time, and many diverse things being done. I mean, I don't know, maybe it was our age being very impressionable. Well, I'm a great deal older than you, but maybe it was being very impressionable at that time. And so there was so many exciting things to see. You know, I remember seeing the Marasade, Peter Brook's Marasade, which my husband was in. And there were incredibly exciting. The theatre was very, very exciting and vibrant at that time, I think. And gosh, weren't we lucky to be part of it?
Oh, it was an extraordinary time. I feel very, very blessed to have had that time in London.
I know.
And I live in California now.
Yes.
But, a while later, fast forward a little bit, I was visiting London and somebody said to me, you have to see this newish company called the Renaissance Theatre Company. And Kenneth Branagh had done something very radical. He'd taken these 3 Shakespeare productions out to the provinces and then he brought them to London. And he had 3 first-time directors.
He did.
Each one of them. That was you and, as I remember, Geraldine McEwen and
Yes.
Derek Jacobi.
That's right.
You directed Much Ado About Nothing. When he asked you to do that, had you wanted to direct? Was this something that you aspired to, or did you just think it was a fun thing to do? Or
I had, strange to say, because I just last Friday finished working with Ken on a film, which is the 10th time we've worked together.
Amazing.
So that it's lovely. It's lovely. And he asked me to do it, and I, in actual fact, just had a cushion made for him. With embroidered on it saying it's Ken Branagh on the phone, and underneath it says, tell him the answer's yes. So when he asked me to direct, I never in my wildest dreams really wanted to direct. But I had Rachel Kavanagh, who is now very established in her own right as a director, was my assistant, she was my godchild and my assistant, which was absolutely invaluable. And I'd done Much Ado at Stratford for John Barton. And so it was a kind of new experience for me. And I had very skilled people to work with. But I not only directed Much Ado, but I also directed Can You Look Back in Anger?
Right.
But I don't want to direct again. I don't like it. I didn't like it much. I found it a bit... well, in a way, the cast gangs up on you, and I didn't like being so isolated from them. I'm much more a person who likes to be in a company.
Yeah, it is very different. You direct the play, and then it's like you're done, and then everybody else.
That's exactly
every night.
And then, of course, then they went on tour, and I went to give them notes, and went round in Brighton, and Ken Branagh left in his costume before I could get round to give him the notes. What terrible behaviour!
Terrible behaviour, awful. But thinking about it, it made me realise that I had an experience with that production that I've never had at any other time, and that was there was a line that Don John, the bastard, said in your production, and it was so real. It was so in the moment, I'm not sure whether it was the rhythm of it or the experience of it, but there was something about it that felt so contemporary and so in the moment that I went back to the script afterwards to see if it had actually been updated. And of course, the line was Shakespeare's and the direction was yours. But there was something about what you brought out in those performances that brought the language into, that day and age that was quite extraordinary. Thank you for that.
But how lovely, how lovely. I'm sure it was the actors who did it, but how lovely to hear, Zoe.
So one of the things that I heard was that during lockdown, you've been learning the sonnets, have you?
Well, how many sonnets there are. I thought, that's what I shall do. I think I know 9.
That's pretty good.
That's not very good. Aren't there 154? I don't know, something like that. Not good enough, I'd say.
From the 9 that you've learned, is there a line or two that you'd like to share with us?
Well, my favourite is a lot of people's favourite, which I could do for you if you'd like. You can always cut it.
I would love it. I don't think it'll be cut.
When in disgrace with fortune and men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state, and trouble deaf heaven with my bootless cries, and look upon myself and curse my state, wishing me like to one more rich in hope, featured like him with friends possessed, desiring this man's art and that man's scope, with what I most enjoy contented least. Yet in these thoughts, myself almost despising, haply I think on thee. And then my state, like to the lark at break of day arising from sullen earth, sings hymns at heaven's gate. For thy sweet love remembered, such wealth brings, that then I scorn to change my state with kings. Oh, how does he do that? How does Shakespeare do that?
You know, perfection is perfection. I don't know how you've managed to, I mean, you must have so much in your brain. I mean, you know, you're an incredible resource. And actually, you know, in terms of memorizing things, just this is a very much a sort of flip of topic. But I wondered, in your TikTok encounters with your grandson, Ben, you did this whole thing with riddles with him, and you knew all the answers. So I'm wondering.
That's because I'm so old, Zoe, and he's so young.
Of course. But did you actually know the answers, or did you work them out?
No, I do know the answers. But he'll catch me out sometime very soon.
Yes, I'm sure.
He'll catch me out, I know.
Yep.
But doing TikTok, it was a kind of, you know, lifesaver at the beginning of lockdown. I mean, he taught me all the moves and things, and he said, no, we can't do it till you get the move. He was very, very strict. And it was very exciting. I knew nothing about TikTok at all, but it was a kind of lifesaver and a discipline that I had, you know, that I had to learn. And he wasn't going to film it till it was right.
Really? So when you did the dancing thing,
yeah. We rehearsed that for days.
I love it. That's great. That's great. So is he a good choreographer? I guess he is, because you did fantastically well.
No, I don't know. No, he's off on something else. I don't know. He's very strict that you get it right.
Yes. I'm just going to jump into Blithe Spirit for a moment. I mean, Madame Arcati, what a wonderful role. And Ian McKellen was referencing comedy. And then I actually, knowing again that we were going to be talking, but there was not going to be any, you know, any other human beings in the Zoom room with us, I reached out to a few people for questions, because in a, you know, on stage, we would be able to open to audience questions. Yes. And Melissa in New Mexico sent me a question about this. She said, are you completely aware of your comedic skills, or is it organic? And she's thinking about that glint you get in your eyes. And so I would say, can you apply that perhaps to Madame Arcati?
Well, I don't know. I only go on instinct. I do have a sense of humour. I do find many things to laugh at. And as Ian McKellen will tell you, we behaved disgracefully in Macbeth, I'm afraid. When he said, he misquoted one night, and the audience was so close. They were about where you are to me now. They were so close, and I was kneeling at his feet, and he said to me, light thickens, and the crow makes wing to the rookie nook instead of rookie wood. Now, that's not particularly funny, but I found it hysterical. And so I had to, Lady Macbeth, for one terrible moment, had a terrible fit of hysteria, and I buried my face. So you get into trouble if you have a sense of humour, I'm afraid. I got into trouble a lot. But I don't know, the only way, I mean, playing comedy, you just learn such a lot about playing comedy. I mean, if you work with Geoffrey Palmer, which I've worked for many episodes of As Time Goes By, I mean, he's sublime, his timing. And so if you work with people who have wonderful timing, you learn from them. And an audience then ultimately will tell you what's funny. I know I did Antony and Cleopatra at the National with Peter Hall. There was one line for Cleopatra that I knew was meant to get a laugh of some kind. And we did 100 performances, and on the 100th, I got the laugh. So had we done 101, I might not have got the laugh the next night.
Do you think that people, when people go to see Antony and Cleopatra, that they sort of assume it's going to be sort of elevated and highbrow and they're not allowed to laugh?
Oh no, I hope they don't.
I know.
They're only stories about people with failings like all of us. And, I can also remember Peter Hall saying to me, the build-up of Antony and Cleopatra at the very beginning, you're expecting these two really fantastic people to walk in. He said, two shits walk on, he said, and behave very, very badly. And they do, of course. They do.
Right.
But yes, it's all a question of learning and the audience telling you so much.
Right. And of course, in Blithe Spirit, you're working with Peter Hall's son, Edward Hall.
I know. When I first met Peter, it was in 1962. Yes, 1962. And he was, Ed is so like him,
really?
So like him in manner and really, physically like him. Mm. So it was a glorious thing to be able to do and to be, to work with him.
Yes. And I understand you knew Noel Coward.
No, I only met. Sorry, I wish I could say yes, I did. Okay. I met him once. I was taken to see Sail Away, which was a musical made of, I don't know what of his plays, actually. How terrible. Anyway, I went to see it at the Savoy, and afterwards the people I was with knew somebody in the cast and said, we'll go round. We went round. And at that minute, Noel Coward walked down a staircase towards me and shook my hand. And the smell of his aftershave on my hand, I wish I'd never washed my hands since. Oh. And that's the most, I didn't know him, but I did shake his hand.
That's quite amazing. That's quite auspicious. I love it. Do you have a favorite Noel Coward song?
Oh, many. Many.
Yeah.
Where would we start?
Yes, indeed.
Where would we start?
Mrs. Worthington, perhaps. I don't know.
Yes, Mrs. Worthington. And when I was at Nottingham, I did Private Lives with Edward Woodward.
Yes.
Well, it was like having a love affair every night.
Really?
It was just wonderful.
Mm.
What beautiful plays they are.
It's that sense of language, isn't it?
It's sublime.
Yeah.
And I saw my daughter playing Elvira, I think the year before last, down at Sonning. And I remembered again what a lovely, lovely play it was. Mm. And so, being asked to play Madame Arcati was a treat. Especially as you can get things like the cards flying all around you, on a film, which was lovely to do.
Yes. You mentioned instinct just now, and sometimes I find, in the work that I do with a film festival, looking at films, I feel sometimes that you have sort of like an informed instinct about things. It's like, you've internalized things, and you sort of are drawn to things, and you have to learn to trust your instinct on things. And I find instinct is rarely wrong somehow. But one of the other people that I went to for questions is a student at RADA, Lucia in London. And I think she's been thinking a lot about instinct. So I have a couple of questions from her that I'd love to ask you.
Right.
How do you know when a project is right? And have you always had that sense, or have you learned to listen to your instinct over the course of your career?
I don't suppose you ever know that a project is right. Mm. Your hopes are there, and especially if involve people who you know, who you may have worked with or you may not have worked with or you admire very much. And so I do everything entirely on instinct, entirely. But maybe sometimes it isn't right, you know. That's for me to find out.
Yeah. I mean, do you find that
sometimes it's thrilling, I think, to take a chance on something?
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Do you think that from the beginning you sort of have a sense of the essence of a character and that you build on that?
I suppose you do have an instinct about the play.
Yeah.
And then with a director and you find it out altogether.
Yeah. And just to follow on from that as well, this is from Lucia, again, thinking about instinct. How do you stay connected with your...
Barker.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have a
very nice Barker. Yes, I love it.
I think she just wants to come in and join the conversation.
Yes, why doesn't she? I love it.
How do you listen to your instinct, even in moments where there are so many other things going on? Lights, camera, makeup, life, taxes, whoever, you know, whatever. I guess it's how do you manage to stay centered?
Well, you have to. You know, it's like that thing of, I remember having Asian flu when I was at the Vic playing Ophelia. Oh. And I came on and I kind of cried all the way through the performance. And I can remember at the end, John Neville said to me, if you can't do it, don't. He said, let your understudy do it. And that's quite true. You can't, you can use, if for instance, somebody you know dies or you have some tragedy, you have to use the energy of that. But what I think is not right is to bring it on and somehow tip the performance because of it. Do you know? You know, it's the thing of grief. If you're going through anything and grieving, it creates an incredible energy in you. And you can use that energy. It's petrol. Don't bring your problem on. The audience aren't interested in that, but at least use the energy that it creates in you.
Great, great advice. I am going to just pause for one moment and let the dog in. Excuse me.
Oh, how wonderful. Where is the dog?
I'm just going to show you. Hey, Bella. Bella.
Oh, Bella. She's very nice.
She's a sweetheart.
She's very nice.
Anyway, back to you.
Yes, well.
So let's talk a little bit about Bond, James Bond. We have to. So, you know, M has, I'm sure, changed your life in many ways. But I think as I asked people, you know, what their favorite Judi Dench moments were, there were many things that came up. And then people would sort of apologize a little bit and say, and also M. But I wondered, before you made Bond films, did you actually go to see them?
Yeah,
you did.
I did.
Okay, great.
Yes, I did definitely go and see them.
Yeah.
But I mean, I never wanted to make a film at all, Zoe, ever.
Really?
Never wanted to make a film. And I'd never told anybody who this was, but while I was at the Vic, I was sent to see somebody who was making a huge film, very famous film. And I went about this part, and he said to me at the end, he said, it's been very nice to meet you. He said, I'm afraid, he said, the film business is not for you, he said. He said, not, you haven't got the right face for films. And I actually, because I'm so passionate about Shakespeare and the stage, didn't mind in the slightest. I found myself being very, very polite indeed, saying thank you very much indeed. And I got up and I put the chair back against the wall and went back to the Vic. And so the whole of any kind of film career is you know, is unexpected and exciting, but, you know, there's a lot to learn.
Yes.
About filming. And when Bond came up, my husband, who's then alive, he said, oh, Judy, he said, you've got to do it. He said, I long to live with I'm living with a Bond woman, he said. And so there it is. And I had a wonderful time doing them. just wonderful.
Yeah.
I complained a bit at one time to Barbara Broccoli and Michael and said, I'm always in the back room. I'm always in this stuffy old office. I never get to go anywhere. So we went to Stowe School to film, and they put me in a trailer, which on the side said Innsbruck. So they said to me afterwards, you can never complain again. I said, no, not I can. I did get to go to Nassau, though. That was exciting.
Gosh.
So it was very glamorous doing it.
Yes. Very glamorous, yes.
It was good fun.
A question from Aaliyah Odoffin, who is in London, and also I had a similar question from Jenny. What do you find helps you the most in terms of process when becoming the characters you play? And does this differ from stage to screen? So I think Aaliyah is also an acting student at RADA. So I'm interested in the state, since you've talked about initially not wanting to make film.
Yes.
How does it differ for you, and how is the experience of it?
It differs because it's all internalized, and that old thing of if you have the right thought in your eyes, the camera will pick it up, and you don't have to externalize it. Then, I mean, I only can speak like that, Zoe, because I've watched really wonderful screen actors. I've just watched, so much of it. When I was at the Vic, I never used to go to my dressing room during a performance. I used to stand at the stage all the time watching people. And I'm sure that for me is like the door opening and the way in. Just watch somebody who's really good at it. And I remember once being when we were with the Nottingham Playhouse, I went to West Africa in 1963 with John Neville and his company, because the set plays were Macbeth, A Twelfth Night, think, Judy, think, and I don't know, something like Arms and the Man, sure. Yeah. And so we went, and before we were going, we were rehearsing, and I was in Sloane Square with John Neville, and we met Paul Rogers, and John had played in Paul Rogers's Macbeth, and I can always remember John saying, "Oh, Paul, how nice to see you." He said, "I'm going to play Macbeth." He said, "I'm going to copy you," he said. It was such a glorious thing to say, "I'm going to copy you." Oh, dear. But it is a question of just getting thoughts in your mind when you're filming. You don't have to get to the person at the back of the upper circle or the back of the circle. You don't have to reach them. The person you're speaking to is right up here. Right. So if you have somehow get all the thoughts right, then that's part of the job.
Yes. So you went to West Africa with...
Yes.
Wow.
They were the set plays. So they were the set plays. Macbeth, Twelfth Night, and Arms and the Man. It was so exciting.
So that they were set plays in schools in West Africa?
In Ghana and Nigeria and Sierra Leone. And sometimes everybody would join in with you.
Really?
Oh, it was thrilling. Yes, I played Lady Macbeth and Viola, and at the end of Twelfth Night, Gordon Reed, who was playing Sebastian, and I did look startlingly alike. And so when we both came up, it stopped the show. It was fantastic. Sometimes everybody said it with us. That's very nice.
Yeah.
It didn't matter if you tried, somebody had come in and said it to you. But it was exciting.
Another question about one of the films that you've done, Iris, which was about Iris Murdoch, which is a truly wonderful film that you did with Kate Winslet. So Melissa in New Mexico asks about this film and asks about the younger Iris and the older Iris and how you and Kate worked together, or did you work together, to have a sense of the younger woman and the and the older iteration of who she was?
We didn't work. I mean, we were in contact. We didn't work together, but but with Richard Eyre, who directed it, he kept a very kind of close link on the two, and we also kept a close link on the books and everything, on the film and everything, you know, that you could see about her.
Right. Yes. Yeah, so it's like you had a common focus, but it was conduit with the director.
We did, and Richard very, very easily and somehow, without us noticing, really kind of intertwined the two, so that hopefully it looked like younger and older.
Yes, yes, absolutely. One of the things that Ian McKellen was saying earlier was that, talking about Lady Macbeth, she always discovered what was not nasty. And
yes, I don't think that's true. I'm going to take him to task for that.
Yeah.
I probably ring him up very soon and give him a terrible time. No, I mean, one of the most favourite things I ever did was a film called Notes on a Scandal.
Yes.
And with Kate Blanchett and also Richard, and I adored every part, every single moment of it. I'm always looking for the same woman again, you know, who's thoroughly bad lot.
Really bad lot, yes.
And I have a bit of a fight and have to plant the cat. I mean, we had such a good time. So no, I mean, what I thought, I feel and still say about the play is that everybody thinks that Lady Macbeth is a villainess. In fact, there was a programme about her this morning with Melvyn Bragg and having a talk about it. Everybody says she's villainous. Well, I think that she is a woman who has an unbounded passion for her husband, that marriage is absolutely essential to her. I don't think she is like that. Otherwise, why does she read the letter, and why does she then need help by going into a trance and asking the spirits to come and help her? I think she is made that, but she brings that on herself, that power, and indeed becomes that person. But she's not like that person at the beginning. She reads the letter and thinks, if that's what he wants, that's what I'll do everything in my power. In fact, I'm going to now invoke the spirits to help me. Otherwise, if she is that person from the beginning, she doesn't need that help.
Yes.
Why would she, you know, come in spirits that tend on mortal thoughts?
Yes.
I mean,
No, I mean, as you say that, it reminds me of my mother fiercely defending my father one time in a way that, you know, might as well have invoked the spirits, even if she actually did not. And I think that, you know, so what you're saying makes that so relatable.
Well, I think, you know, it's in her first scene.
Yeah.
Her very first scene, she reads the letter and she says, if that's what you want, that's what I'm going to help you do.
Right.
And then kneels or whatever and invokes the spirits to just take away every bit of femininity from her.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. A couple of people sent me questions that are sort of about likability and evil. And just sort of picking up on what you were just saying, Elaine in London says, I've been thinking about Judi today, and what strikes me about her body of work is that there's not a single performance which could be deemed to be about evil. And she thinks about a Toni Morrison essay, where Toni Morrison says, evil has a blockbuster audience, goodness lurks backstage. Evil has vivid speech, goodness bites its tongue. So she says that when she thinks about your work, she sees goodness, and she doesn't mean sentimentality or superficial sweetness, but that you're interested in complication, and that every character you play arrives at some level of self-knowledge. And I think that in a way that you're saying that with Lady Macbeth.
Has she seen Notes on a Scandal?
I think she has, yes. I know, because when she wrote that, I mentioned Notes on a Scandal, and I think she's trying to get at something a little different. She said, quoting Morrison, that a satisfactory or good ending is when the protagonist learns something vital and morally insightful that she or he didn't know at the beginning. So I guess, is that important to you?
I think, yes, I think it is. And I think it's important for the audience too.
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah.
There must be a progression.
Yes.
There must be a progression of something. Intention, progression. And ultimately, what happens at the end? I mean...
Yeah. And then from Chris Pereira in England, have you ever played a part either on stage or in a film where you actually didn't like the character you were portraying? If so, what made you take the part, and what devices did you use to pull off the performance?
Well,
Or do you always find something likable in them?
It's not a question of liking the character.
Yeah. Right.
It's reading it, or in my case now having it read to me because I can't see, and it's somehow finding a way of telling that story. It's not your business to like it, really. That's not what we're there. Our business is to tell the author's story to a group of people, either who come to a movie or in a theatre.
Right.
And so I think it's quite difficult to make a moral judgment about something.
Yeah.
I think it's the audience's job. You must present it all, and the audience must ultimately be able to pick the bones out of it and make up their mind about what they decide.
Right.
I think it's quite dangerous to decide something before, do you know?
Yeah. Sarah Lees asks, or says, what I've always admired the most about your acting is the way that you make each role seem so personal to you. It's part of what makes your character so believable. And she loves Philomena, which, yes, we showed at Mill Valley Film Festival. I'm very...
Oh, right.
Yeah. Where you handled a deeply moving narrative with such delicate and reassuring credibility. To act in such a way suggests that you're able to connect profoundly with the part you're playing. I'd like to know which role during your extensive career has resonated with you the most? And that's a big question. I
don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. Do you have favourites from, do you have ones that you...
I do have, yes, that I would like to go back to do again. I'd love to go back to Romeo and Juliet, but of course it would bring the house down. Because I know now how to play it. I remember Gwen Franken Davis, when she was in her 80s, she appeared on, I think, the Wogan show, and she did a bit of Juliet, which was just magical. It's only that, later you understand sometimes. And then you have to go through an experience to understand something you hadn't understood previously, The thing is, I think that you can use everything you have and every experience. I think that I've always thought and said to students and things, it's like we have a camera here. Mm-hmm. And it's not that you consciously, when you are in a real emotional position, or something is happening, or you're having a row that you shouldn't, of course, be conscious of thinking, oh, that's what you do when you're... But this thing could take a little film and somehow keep it at the back of your mind, so you have a reference.
Yes.
It's sometimes very, very hard to reference something that you have in no way experienced.
Yeah.
How do you do? You have to do it with imagination, and you do it, of course, with the author's words.
Yes. What do you think you understand about Juliet now that you did not understand then?
I don't know. I could do it better, but it would get a laugh.
I know, it's such a shame. I mean, the language is so beautiful in that play. It's so...
Oh, when she says, my love is all as boundless as the sea. Crikey.
I know. It's, yes, it makes your heart sing.
And we did it for 3 nights at the Fenice in Venice.
Really?
And I was leaving the company after all those years to go to Stratford. And that was my last night, was at the Fenice. That was lovely. That was wonderful.
Gives me the chills, actually.
Yes, it was wonderful. It was terribly emotional. And now, you know that I plant trees in my garden to all my friends who've died.
Yes.
And now I am looking now at a tree which is planted to John Stride, who played Romeo.
Oh.
Just out of that window there.
Beautiful. What kind of tree is it? You know?
It's a maple.
Beautiful. That's lovely. What a great thing to do, to have that living.
Too many of them, though, Zoe. Too many of them.
Yeah.
And many more to go in, I'm afraid.
Yes. Just one more thing. Just from picking up from what you were just saying, you know, and in thinking about Juliet and life and everything, we're showing a film at Mill Valley that is a first feature-length film by a young French woman. She's 20. She wrote this film when she was 15. One of the things that really struck me about her film is that, you know, when you're 15, you have so little lived experience.
Yes.
And it was a reminder, because she acts in the film as well, that there's something about acting when you're when you're a teenager that is very different from probably around 20 onwards, because it seems like, you know, young actors have a direct connection with feeling an experience that they just channel, whereas, you know, sometime between 18, 19, 20, 21, you start, you know, technique becomes more important.
Yes.
And you actually have to start to build on technique. And
yeah, so ideally you want them both, don't you?
You do, actually, yes. Yes. And maybe that comes back to what Lucia was asking about instinct. Maybe it's keeping that, you know, that sense of instinct and directness that you have when you're younger.
Sometimes I've had the experience of a director giving me a note, and me then saying, I know exactly what you mean. Let me now, because the only way of proving that is to get up and do it and say, is that what you meant, you know?
Yes.
And then if it isn't, you must go back to the drawing board again.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. That's great.
And you learn, of course, if you're doing a play, you learn all the way along, you learn something new about it. Yes. That's why the theatre is so, you know, thrilling, because it's never, ever the same.
Yeah, it's an evolving thing. That's so true. Yeah. Judy, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to end just by reading something that somebody, again, who didn't really have a question, had more of an observation, wrote to me. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for everything. Thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for your time forever. And, you know, I think our hearts and minds are just, you know, blossoming as a result of the extraordinary talents that you've brought into our lives. And Robin, who's a producer in Oakland, who's seen your work on stage many times, said, but my all-time favorite is your role as Jean Hardcastle in As Time Goes By. It still gives me a lump in my throat for very personal reasons. I'd watch episodes with my mum and my aunt over and over again on PBS, and they're both gone now. But that time shared over those episodes means so much to me. Suppose as an actor, you never know how you're going to touch people, but I would just like to thank her for that. So on behalf of Robin, I thank her, and on behalf of myself and all of us, thank you so much for everything.
Thank you, Zoe. Thank you.